city, from the county, from the state, because these are health orders. So that's who's doing this enforcement and will be doing the enforcement.
Well, can we answer the question on the violence? Because I'm
On Long Island?
Here in Albany, the DA, the Albany County Sheriff, the Rensselaer County Sheriff, the Saratoga County Sheriff, they've all told me that they don't feel like they're getting support from you. They are concerned about the bail reform legislation that passed and was already rolled back, and they are having a hard time with the violence in this area. So have you had meetings with the officers here?
Okay. Well, now you're saying something different. That's all I'm saying. Before you said, how do I expect them to enforce these rules, the police, when they're doing so many things? The answer to that is Department of Health primarily enforces these rules. So they're not Department of Health, they're Albany Police, right? So that's your answer to that question. Second question is, the police feel under stress with the spike in violent crime. 100% I agree with them. I am very concerned about it. I have spoken to it, and this state has taken action more aggressively than any state in the United States of America. It is the combination of the increase in crime and the tension between the community and the police, which is very real. In my lifetime, I have never seen the kind of protests and antagonism towards the police. I've never seen it. I've never seen the vitriol towards the police. It is frightening. It's disconcerting to the police. I'm sure they find it highly offensive to have themselves questioned. I don't think you should be so quick to dismiss the protesters in this and their concerns who believe you have police officers who have violated their rights. What happened to Mr. Floyd being killed by police officers was very real. And you have had a long line of people who have been killed wrongfully by police. And that is true too. And that has to be addressed. So this is not so simple, the police are right, the protesters are wrong. There's truth on both sides. This state, first state in the nation, said this has to be resolved and reconciled. Every local government, Albany, every local government, 500, that has a police department, must have a collaborative where they put all parties at the table and talk these issues through and come up with a new public safety plan that they pass by the council. So your point, the police can come and say, I'm overwhelmed, and I don't like this law, and I don't like this law, and I don't like what we're being accused of. The community protesters can come and say, I think police have abused their authority. I think their use of force is wrong. And then it has to be resolved. And come up with a new public safety plan. Look, a lot of people say not every 911 call requires a person with a gun, right? There's an old expression, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. If a person is mentally ill, do you really need a police officer to go, right? If the issue is substance abuse, do you really need a police officer to respond? Shouldn't you have a capacity to send a mental health worker or a substance abuse counselor? You have 5,000 police officers. Well, they're doing public safety. Shouldn't a percentage of those 5,000 slots be for mental health and crisis intervention? That is a bona fide conversation that has to happen community by community. Because the answer in New York City is different than Albany, is different than Buffalo. Many local governments have started that conversation. Not only do they have to have the conversation, they have to reinvent their police department, pass a law reinventing it, and they have to do it by April. Or the state, they won't get state funding. That's how to resolve it. You know, there are two very strong opinions, and divorce is not an option.
So there you have it. By the time, but okay, we're going to unpack. We're going to unpack. Well, I'm going to unpack some of what was said right now. And this is why I feel the way I feel about how things that are done through the government can present a great deal of inefficiencies. I mean, a great deal. For example, in a former, I'll tell you. When you talk about crisis intervention, not every 911 call deserves a person with a gun. That percentage, in my experience, that percentage is very small compared to when I've called 911 in order to do my job effectively, to help someone who's in distress. I needed somebody to show up with a gun. Let me just be frank. I've said before that I've been in the mental health field for quite a while, and I don't just sit in an office talk to people. I don't, I'm in the field. Like, I work with people in the community directly. I meet them where they're at. You can imagine, I meet them where they are at, not just by way of interaction and having conversation, but physically meet them where they're at. That's why I say, unless a person is doing, you're involved in the craft, you're involved in the work, you're involved in the profession. People who are outside really can't speak on certain things, especially dealing with this. Especially dealing with certain things, crisis intervention and mental health issues. There are a lot of people out here who are just simply not well. And I'm damn happy when I call 911. I call them because I don't know what I'm going to face. When you're meeting somebody anywhere where they supposedly live, in their home, in their community, in their neighborhood, outside, any type of situation, a person's mind is unpredictable. You don't have a crystal ball that's going to tell you exactly what's going to happen, especially if there's instability there, especially if the person is dealing with mental illness, especially when the person's not taking care of their medication, they're not following their treatment. A ticking time bomb is an understatement. I don't walk around with a weapon. That's not what I do in my capacity. You know what my weapon is? My weapon is my mind. to try to de-escalate, to try to neutralize crises, to offer support. Do you know what that takes? Do you know what that entails? And in many cases, that's not enough. Because you're not only being faced with someone, the unknown, the X factor, the unknown factor. Unknown because you don't know what you're going to be facing. An old colleague of mine and my peers, I'll tell you what, let me just say this. I'm not law enforcement, so I don't walk around with a badge. I don't walk around with, firearm, vests. I'm not law enforcement. So people could say, yeah, I'm a mental health person. I can go and address these issues. But again, when you're dealing with certain levels of distress and you don't know what you're going to face, to be forearmed, to be forewarned is to be forearmed. And I'm going to give you an example about being forewarned and tying this with something that I talked about recently regarding intuition. We're going to be genuine. We're going to be real. A former colleague of mine had to go meet her client. Had to go meet her client in the community. But before she met her client, she reached out. Over the phone, client didn't sound too well. Client sounded like there was something wrong, right? You could tell these things after a while. You could hear it, and she could hear it in a client's voice. So what did she do? She decided not to go. But when her supervisor asked her about the client, and she told the supervisor that she tried to go see the client, and before she actually went, she gave the client a call. The client didn't sound like he was in the mood to see her. So she didn't go. The supervisor said, no, go see the client. She just didn't feel like going, but after hearing what her supervisor told her, she went and did the visit. She met the client in the client's home, and she didn't leave. She met the client in the client's home, and she left Earth. How? Because a client shot her in the head. Now, for people to talk about how, police, I've heard the police even say it too. Like they don't want to deal with communities or incidents that have to do with people who are suffering from mental health or substance abuse. Like that's not a police issue. Really? If your proverbial spider senses are tingling, if you get a sense, if you walking somewhere and those hairs on your back start to raise and you realize, oh, maybe I should turn the other way, and you don't, and then something happens to you, well, there's the lesson. Because in some cases, like the cases of my former colleague, may her soul rest in peace, there's no coming back from that. Again, she didn't have a gun. All she had was her own wherewithal. What do I mean by that? Her own mind. That was her weapon. That was her defense. Her mind and speaking and what she said, that's all that matters in these situations. And again, more often than not, we need the help from the police. When you have clients, and it's beyond being cursed out, but when they're on a position to hurt you, which they always are, this is about doing the dirty work. When they're in a position to hurt you, and you have to see them, or you're being forced to go see them, and they're presenting behaviors that let you know, oh, no, this is beyond me. Yeah, I'm going to call the police so that they can come, provide safety for the client to keep them from hurting themselves, and to provide safety for people like myself to keep me from being hurt, and to also provide safety for themselves to keep all parties safe. That's why I don't really, my position on, the completely abolishing the police department, I don't agree with. We need police. We need public safety. But they do need adequate training. But miss me with the whole, you need counselors and mental health and people and social workers to go. Nah, that's not enough. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I used to do child protection. Investigate child abuse and maltreatment. I used to do that. I had to go remove kids from homes. And let me tell you something. It's only those who know, who've done that they could really pretty much understand where I'm coming from when I say this. It's another example of when you go to these places, you go to these homes, and you basically literally trying to save kids. Literally. You don't know what you're about to face. And like I've said before, only people who know can understand. The levels of wickedness and deprivation and maltreatment and abuse that takes place out here, many people can't handle. I said this before. I did a visit one time. This was when I was doing the child protection. Walked in the house. I already knew from the door what it was going to be. I already knew. Sometimes you walk in, you have to really investigate to see if there's any merit to the allegations. You have to investigate. So I was investigating. And I had to see if there was any merit to actually physically remove. It takes a lot. Though only those who do it, who've done it, know. It takes a lot. And there was merit. There was merit. There was merit. And when I declared who I was and what I was there for, in a tenement building, in an apartment, by the time I finished saying who I was, they were already People in the house were all ready. And again, it was just me. The people in the home, the adults who were in the home, were already telling the whole neighborhood, opened the windows up and told the whole neighborhood what was going down and to get ready. The hell do you think I had to do? What do you think I had to do? You know what they were telling the neighborhood to do? To get ready to devour me. Yo, he's food. Yo, so-and-so is here, y'all. He's food. I'm looking at these kids, all twisted. All twisted. Marks on their bodies. Mice and roaches. No beds to sleep on. A baby that was left on a fire escape. I'm not going to tell you what a fire escape is. You look it up. And it's just me. A 12-year-old who couldn't even walk. Failure to thrive. Look it up. A 12-year-old who was living in a crib. Couldn't walk. Couldn't even eat. She was eating like a baby. Couldn't speak. Look it up. Marks and bruises all over her body. Burn marks and everything. What the hell would you think I was supposed to do? What do you think I was supposed to do? I'm hearing rumblings coming outside the door, stairs, people running up the stairs, talking wild, incredibly loud, heckling, taunting. I'm hearing things drop on the ground and people saying, no, hold that. In my mind, it's metal dropping on the ground because people hurried up the stairs. Do you understand what I'm telling y'all? They hurried up the stairs. Once they made the alert, once the people in the house opened the window and said, yo, so-and-so is here. He's food. Everything happened so fast. I had to use my mind. That was my only weapon. That I had. Forget my ID. That's what got me in the door. But after that, I had me. I had nothing. Nothing else, I mean. Had my mind. Had nothing else. And you mean to tell me? How do you think I was going to come out of that situation? You know what's the worst part about all of this? Because I'm not going to give you explicit because of course I'm still here. I'm alive. So I got out of that situation. I didn't get out of it by myself though. Understand what I'm saying to y'all. But check this out. You know what really affected me by all of that? When I had the baby in my arm and the 12-year-old had to be carried out because she couldn't walk. They were crying for their parents. The same parents who got them in the condition they were in. They were crying, reaching out for their parents. I had to use my head. I had to use my mind to negotiate with these people, man. To negotiate with these people, man. Before I took the kids, I had to negotiate with these people, man, so I could live. And I had to do it in such a way that they would understand why I needed to call the police. Because I wasn't going to walk out. I wasn't going to walk out the same way I came in. So it hits different for me when I hear these politicians talk this rhetoric, and when I hear police complain about et cetera, with crisis intervention and all this stuff, it hits different for me, man. It hits different. And I just told you about one case I had to go investigate. One case, one situation, one day. This was 20 years ago. And I remember it like it was an hour ago. Imagine walking in a situation and automatically you're a hostage. And all you trying to do is your job. But you became a hostage. And it's just you and them. Miss me with the nonsense, man. Miss me with the nonsense, man. Crypto Wonder, I'm out.